The great crystal dome of Nexus Prime gleamed under three suns. Inside the massive structure, hundreds of alien voices filled the air with debate. The Galactic Council was in session, just like it had been every week for the past 2,000 years. Ambassador Ziktar of the hegemony of Keth stood at his speaking platform. His forearms gestured wildly as he complained about trade routes. "The Outer Rim colonies are stealing profits from core worlds," he declared. His voice echoed through the chamber, translated into dozens of languages by the universal systems. Near the back of the chamber, a small section sat empty. Row 847, seats 12 through 15, the human delegation spot. The nameplate still read, Terra Human Republic in basic council script. But nobody looked at it. Nobody cared. The Zephyrian trade minister, a tall being with silver skin, nodded along with Ziktar's speech. She made notes on her data pad about shipping contracts and fuel costs. The empty human seats were just another piece of furniture to her. Council sessions lasted for hours. Species argued about mining rights, shipping lanes, and colony borders. They debated new technologies and ancient treaties. But through it all, the human seats stayed empty. Week after week, month after month, the automated attendance system marked them as absent, but no one bothered to check why. Meanwhile, on the human colony world of New Geneva, something extraordinary was happening. The morning sky was filled with ships. Not just a few vessels, but hundreds of them. Transport ships, cargo haulers, and massive colony barges rose from the surface in perfect formation. Captain Maria Santos watched from the control tower as the last civilian transport lifted off. Her job was simple: make sure everyone got out safely. The evacuation had been planned for months, but executed in just 3 days. Every human on New Geneva was now heading toward the Galactic Rim. "Tower Control, this is Transport 77, came a voice over the radio. "We have the last group from Sector 12. All civilians aboard." Maria checked her list. 23,000 people lived on New Geneva. 23,000 people were now safely in space. "Confirmed, Transport 77. You are clear for departure." She turned to her small team. "That's everyone. Time for us to go." The humans left behind only empty buildings and working systems. The power plant still hummed. The water treatment facilities still cleaned and pumped. The atmospheric processors still maintained the air. To any casual observer, New Geneva looked like a functioning colony that just happened to be empty. But hidden in the computer systems were small programs. They would keep everything running for exactly 6 months. After that, the programs would delete themselves. The systems would slowly shut down, and New Geneva would return to the wild planet it had been before humans arrived. The same scene played out on dozens of human worlds. On the industrial planet of Hamilton's world, massive factories still churned out computer chips and medical equipment. But the workers were gone. Automated systems would keep production going for a while, then quietly stop. On the research station orbiting Kepler Prime, scientists had uploaded their final data just hours before leaving. 30 years of breakthrough research in physics and biology sat waiting in the computers. The station would keep transmitting the data to anyone who asked, but there would be no one to explain what it all meant. Dr. James Chen stood on the bridge of the colony ship, New Horizon. He was one of the last humans to leave Council space. As the head of human scientific operations, he had made sure every research facility was properly shut down. "Sir, we're receiving the final confirmation signals," reported his aide. "All human installations have completed evacuation protocols." James nodded. "How many people total?" 47,800,000. Every human citizen in Council space is now aboard evacuation vessels. It was the largest movement of people in galactic history, but it happened so quietly that nobody noticed. Humans had always been good at being invisible when they wanted to be. The evacuation ships didn't head for human core worlds. Instead, they flew toward the empty regions between spiral arms. Out there, far from any alien eyes, humans had built something special. Hidden colonies, secret research stations, entire worlds that the Galactic Council had never discovered. For 50 years, while serving on the Council, humans had been busy. They had mapped thousands of star systems that other species missed. They had found planets rich in resources that nobody else knew existed, and they had built a second civilization in the darkness between stars. Ambassador Sarah Chen sat in her office on Earth, watching the news feeds. Every major human news network was covering the evacuation. But they called it something else. The Great Journey or Operation New Dawn. To humans, this wasn't running away. This was graduation. "Ma'am, the last transport has cleared council space," her assistant reported. Sarah stood and walked to her window. Earth looked peaceful in the morning light. Blue oceans and white clouds, just as it had for billions of years. But soon Earth would be empty too. The birth world of humanity would join the evacuation. She picked up her secure communicator and entered a code. "This is Ambassador Chen. Confirm all human assets are clear of council space." "Confirmed, Ambassador. All 47 million citizens are en route to designated sites. All facilities are running on automatic systems. All monitoring stations are active and recording." Sarah smiled. "Then it's time for Phase 2. On Nexus Prime, the Galactic Council was still debating trade routes. Zektar had finished his speech and now a Aquarian representative was complaining about water rights. The session would continue for another 4 hours, just like always. Nobody had noticed that human cargo ships hadn't delivered supplies in 3 weeks. Nobody realized that human-made computer chips were no longer being manufactured. Nobody saw that human research data had stopped updating. The Council's attention system was designed to track important species. The hegemony of Keth controlled the military. The Zephyrian Trade Federation ran the economy. The Aquarian Empire managed resources. Humans were just humans. They made small things and did boring jobs. They were helpful but not important. In the Grand Chamber, alien voices continued their eternal debates. Laws were passed. Treaties were signed. The business of a galactic civilization continued as it had for centuries. But in the computer systems that ran everything, small changes were happening. Delivery schedules were shifting. Quality control systems were noting irregularities. Supply chains were developing tiny gaps. The Galactic Council had no idea that their civilization was about to face its greatest crisis. They didn't know that the quiet species from the small blue planet had just removed themselves from the equation. They couldn't imagine that losing one insignificant member could threaten everything they had built. The humans were gone. And soon everyone would notice. 3 months had passed since the humans left. The Galactic Council still met every week in their crystal dome. The debates continued about the same old topics. Trade routes, mining rights, colony expansion. But something was different, even if nobody could say exactly what. Administrator Veltara of the Zephyrian Trade Federation stared at her data screen in confusion. For the past week, she had been trying to solve a simple problem. The medical facility on Rigel 7 needed emergency supplies. They were running out of a drug called synthemol, which treated a common alien disease. The request should have been easy to fill. Veltara checked the supply list and found 17 different companies that made synthemol. She sent orders to all of them. But the responses she got back made no sense. Unable to fulfill order due to missing component. Z47, wrote one company. Production halted pending delivery of catalyst. Substrate, replied another. Factory shut down for retooling. No estimated restart date, said a third. Veltara frowned at her screen. Component Z47, catalyst substrate. She had never heard of these things. Synthemol was a basic medicine that had been made for decades. How could 17 different companies all have the same problems at the same time? She decided to investigate deeper. The first company on her list was Galactic Medicals. Based on the industrial world of Kepler 9, she called their production manager directly. "The problem is simple," explained manager Tokvan, a purple-skinned Catharian. "We need a specific chemical compound to make synthemol. It's called methylated enzyme substrate. We used to get it from a small supplier, but they stopped delivering 3 months ago." "Which supplier?" Veltara asked. "Some human company?" "I don't remember the name. They were cheap and reliable, so we never looked for alternatives." Veltara felt a cold feeling in her stomach. "Humans, are you sure?" "Yes, definitely humans. They had a factory somewhere in the outer colonies. Look, we can find other suppliers, but it will take time. Maybe 6 months to set up new contracts. The medical facility on Rigel 7 couldn't wait 6 months. Veltara ended the call and immediately contacted the other 16 companies. The story was always the same. A small human supplier had stopped delivering. A crucial component was missing. Production had stopped. She tried calling the human embassy on Nexus Prime, but got only a recorded message. "The Human Republic's diplomatic offices are temporarily closed for restructuring. For urgent matters, please contact your local council." Representative. But the local council Representative was just another bureaucrat who knew nothing about chemical suppliers or enzyme substrates. On the other side of the galaxy, Fleet Commander Bractal of the hegemony of Keth was having his own problems. 3 of his most important warships were grounded with computer failures. The navigation systems kept giving impossible readings. "Sir, the engineers say it's a software problem," reported his aide. "The star mapping algorithms are corrupted." Bractal looked at the massive warship through his office window. The ship could destroy planets, but it couldn't find its way between star systems. "Can't they fix it?" "They're trying, sir, but the navigation software is very complex. The engineers who wrote it aren't responding to our calls." "Which engineers?" "The Terra Navigation Company. They designed the star mapping systems for most of our fleet, but their offices have been closed for months." Another human company. Bractal was starting to see a pattern. He ordered his staff to check the other grounded ships. Sure enough, they all used human-made navigation software. Software that was now failing and couldn't be repaired because the humans were gone. On the agricultural world of Greenfields, Farmer Zoxian stood in his dying crop fields. The plants that should have been green and healthy were turning brown and withering. He had tried everything he could think of, but nothing worked. The local agricultural agent arrived in a hover car, kicking up dust as she landed. Agent Limara was a Zephyrian with extensive knowledge of farming, but even she looked puzzled. "I've never seen anything like this," she admitted, kneeling next to the dying plants. "Your soil tests are normal. The weather has been perfect. You're using the right fertilizers." "That's what I don't understand," Zoxian said. "Everything should be working." Limara pulled out her datapad and started checking supply records. "Wait, I see something odd. You've been using Nutrient Complex XJ4 for the past 5 years, but the delivery stopped 3 months ago." "That's impossible. I have plenty of XJ4 in storage." "No, you have generic fertilizer that looks similar. The real XJ4 contains special enzymes that your crops need. Without those enzymes, the plants slowly starve even if they look healthy at first." Zoxian felt his heart sink. "Where do I get real XJ4? Limara checked her records again. "It was made by, let me see, New Earth Agricultural Solutions, a human company, but I can't find any contact information for them. All across the galaxy, similar problems were appearing. Computer networks slowed down when human-designed efficiency programs stopped updating. Manufacturing plants experienced quality problems when human-made testing equipment went offline. Even the air recycling systems on space stations began having issues. The problem seemed small at first. A delayed shipment here, a software glitch there, but they were all connected by one common thread. Humans had been involved in fixing, improving or maintaining the systems that failed. Dr. Kivrin, a Aquarian scientist, was one of the first to see the bigger picture. She worked at the Central Research Institute on Nexus Prime, studying galactic economics. Her job was to track trade patterns and predict market trends. 3 months after the problem started, she presented her findings to the Institute's board of directors. "The data shows a clear pattern," she explained, pointing to charts on her display screen. "We're experiencing failures in over 200 different industries. At first glance, these seem unrelated. Medicine, navigation, agriculture, manufacturing, computing. But they are related?" asked Director Naltor. "Yes. Every single failure can be traced back to a human company, human technology, or human expertise. It appears that humans were much more involved in our economy than anyone realized." The board members looked confused. "That's impossible," said Director Welgon. "Humans are a minor species. They joined the Council only 50 years ago. Their technology is primitive." Dr. Kivrin had thought the same thing until she studied the data. "That's what we all believed. But the evidence says otherwise. Humans weren't just participating in our economy. They were supporting it in ways we never noticed." She changed her display to show a galactic map covered in red dots. Each dot represents a system failure that traces back to missing human input. As you can see, they're everywhere. The room fell silent. The map showed red dots on every major trade route, every important colony, every core world. The human influence had spread throughout the galaxy like an invisible web. "How is this possible?" whispered Director Naltor. "I think humans were much smarter than we gave them credit for," Dr. Kivrin replied. "They found problems that other species couldn't solve. They offered solutions that were so good, we became dependent on them without realizing it." "But where are they now?" Dr. Kivrin shrugged. "Gone. Every human facility in council space is abandoned. Every human company is closed. Every human expert has disappeared. Outside the Institute, the great city of Nexus Prime continued its daily routine. Millions of aliens went about their business, unaware that their civilization was slowly falling apart. The failures were still small enough to hide. The problems were still manageable, but Dr. Kivrin knew the truth. The worst was yet to come. 6 months after the humans disappeared, the Galactic Council was in chaos. What had started as small problems had grown into a civilization-threatening crisis. The great crystal dome that housed the council chambers was half empty, as representatives dealt with emergencies on their homeworlds. Chancellor Mordak, the council's highest leader, stood before the emergency assembly. His usual calm demeanor was gone, replaced by barely controlled panic. Behind him, massive screens showed the scope of the disaster. "Fellow beings," he began, his voice echoing in the chamber, "we face the greatest crisis in council history. Our preliminary reports show system failures affecting 93% of member worlds." Shocked murmurs filled the chamber. Ambassador Ziktar of the hegemony of Keth stood up, his forearms trembling with rage. "This is impossible. How can one missing species cause such damage?" On the screens behind the Chancellor, red warning symbols flashed across a galactic map. Each symbol represented a critical failure. Communication networks down, transport systems offline, agricultural systems failing, industrial production stopped. Dr. Velnova, the council's chief scientist, took the speaking platform. Her tentacled head writhed with stress as she explained their findings. "Our investigation teams have identified the root cause. The species we knew as humans were not what they appeared to be." She activated a holographic display showing a detailed analysis. "For 50 years, humans quietly inserted themselves into every major system in our civilization. They didn't conquer or demand. They simply offered solutions to problems we couldn't solve ourselves." The display showed a complex web of connections. Human companies, human technologies, human expertise. The web covered every aspect of galactic society. They made themselves indispensable while appearing completely dispensable. Dr. Velnova continued. "We thought they were helping us. In reality, we became completely dependent on them. On the Zephyrian homeworld of Veltar, the situation was desperate. The planet's 3 billion inhabitants were running out of breathable air. The atmospheric processors that maintained the planet's oxygen levels had failed 2 weeks ago." Chief Engineer Ralvin stood in the main control room, surrounded by displays showing dangerous gas levels. His team had worked day and night trying to fix the processors, but the technology was beyond their understanding, sir. "The eastern continent is showing critical oxygen depletion," reported his assistant. "We have maybe 3 days before people start dying." Ralvin stared at the human-made control systems. The interfaces looked simple enough, just basic buttons and screens. But underneath the simple exterior was technology so advanced that his best engineers couldn't understand it. "What about the backup systems?" he asked. "Also human-designed, sir. We can't get them working either. 3 billion lives hung in the balance because one small species had built their life support systems. Systems that worked perfectly for decades but couldn't be repaired once the humans left." In the Keith military sector, Fleet Admiral Drakvon faced a different but equally terrifying problem. The hegemony's entire naval fleet was grounded, not just a few ships but every single vessel capable of interstellar travel. "Report," he ordered his chief engineer. "Sir, the navigation computers are completely dead. Without star mapping data, our ships can't plot courses between systems. We're trapped in our home space." Admiral Drakvon looked out at the massive fleet floating helplessly in orbit. Ships that could destroy entire worlds couldn't find their way to the next star system. "Can't we use our old navigation methods?" "No, sir. We stopped training navigators 50 years ago when we got the human systems. Those systems were so accurate and reliable that manual navigation became obsolete." The irony was devastating. The most powerful military force in the galaxy was helpless because they had trusted human technology too much. On the research world of Kepler Prime, Dr. Jintar made a discovery that changed everything. He was part of the team investigating abandoned human facilities, trying to understand their technology. What he found in a research lab made his blood run cold. "Team leader," he called over his communicator, "you need to see this immediately." Dr. Corwell, the team leader, arrived within minutes. "What did you find?" Jintar pointed to a massive computer core that filled an entire room. "This isn't a research computer. It's a quantum processing unit. The computational power here is at least 1,000 times greater than our best systems. That's impossible. Human technology was primitive. That's what we thought. But look at this. Jintar activated one of the displays. Complex equations filled the screen, showing mathematical models beyond anything the Council had achieved. Dr. Corwell studied the equations with growing amazement. These are solutions to problems we've been working on for centuries. Faster than light communication, matter manipulation, artificial gravity without massive generators. There's more, Jintar said. He led her to another room filled with biological research equipment. They solved genetic diseases that we thought were incurable. They created materials that shouldn't be possible. They mapped quantum mechanics in ways we never imagined. The two scientists stood in stunned silence. Everything they thought they knew about humans was wrong. The species they had dismissed as backward had technology that was centuries ahead of the rest of the galaxy. Why did they hide this? Dr. Corwell whispered. Jintar had been wondering the same thing. Maybe they were studying us, learning about our weaknesses while pretending to be weak themselves. Back on Nexus Prime, emergency meetings ran around the clock. The Council's greatest minds worked desperately to understand the crisis and find solutions. But every answer led to the same conclusion. They needed the humans back. Administrator Lokhtar of the Aquarian Empire stood before the emergency committee. His homeworld's water treatment systems had failed, threatening 50 billion lives. We must contact the humans, he declared. We must beg them to return. How? Asked Chancellor Mordak. We don't know where they went. Every human facility is abandoned. Every human ship has vanished. It's like they never existed. Dr. Velnova had spent weeks studying the abandoned human spaces. They didn't just leave randomly, she reported. This was planned. Every system they abandoned will fail within a specific time frame. Some in days, others in months, but all of them will eventually stop working. Are you saying they programmed everything to fail? Not exactly. They built everything to depend on regular maintenance and updates that only they could provide. Without humans, the systems slowly degrade until they stop working completely. Council member Pixaron, a small insectoid being, raised a disturbing question. What if they don't want to come back? What if this was deliberate? The chamber fell silent. The idea that humans had planned this catastrophe was too terrible to consider, but the evidence was overwhelming. No species could disappear so completely by accident. Chancellor Mordak made the decision that everyone was thinking, but nobody wanted to say. We will send search expeditions to find the humans. Every available ship, every qualified crew. We will search every star system in the galaxy if necessary. And if we find them? Asked Ambassador Ziktar. We will do whatever it takes to convince them to return. But privately, the Chancellor wondered if it was already too late. The galaxy was falling apart faster than they could fix it. How long before their civilization collapsed completely? How long before billions of beings died because one species had quietly walked away? The Great Galactic Council, which had ruled space for 2,000 years, was learning a harsh lesson. Sometimes the most powerful force in the universe wasn't military might or economic strength. Sometimes it was the quiet competence of those you never bothered to truly understand. The humans were gone, and without them everything was falling apart. 1 year after humanity's disappearance, the first search expedition returned to Nexus Prime with impossible news. Captain Drolwyn of the exploration vessel, Starseeker, stood before the emergency council with data that shattered everything they thought they knew about humans. We found them, he announced to the packed chamber. Or rather, we found where they used to be. Chancellor Mordak leaned forward in his chair. Report, Captain. We searched the human core worlds first. Earth, New Geneva, Hamilton's world. All the colonies we knew about. Captain Drolwyn activated a holographic display showing detailed scans. What we discovered changes everything. The display showed Earth from orbit. But this wasn't the primitive planet the Council remembered. Massive orbital installations surrounded the world like a metal ring. Space elevators stretched from the surface into the clouds. The night side of the planet glowed with cities that covered entire continents. This is impossible, whispered Dr. Velnova. Our records show Earth as a simple agricultural world with basic technology. Our records were wrong, Captain Drolwyn replied. Every human world we visited showed signs of advanced civilization, far beyond anything in Council space. But they're all empty now, completely abandoned. Admiral Cortell, head of the Council's military, studied the images with growing alarm. Those orbital structures. Some of them are weapons platforms, defensive systems that could destroy entire fleets. That's not the strangest part, the captain continued. He changed the display to show underground installations. Beneath the surface of every human world, we found massive tunnel systems, underground cities, manufacturing complexes, research facilities that go down for kilometers. The council members sat in stunned silence. The humans they had dismissed as a minor species had built a hidden civilization beneath their feet. A civilization that made council technology look like stone tools. Dr. Centaur, the council's top xenobiologist, raised her hand. Captain, did you find any clues about where they went? We found something better. We found their files. The holographic display changed again, showing endless rows of data. The humans kept detailed records on everything. Every species in the council, every planet, every technology, every political system. They studied us for 50 years and recorded everything they learned. Chancellor Mordak felt his heart sink. What kind of records? Captain Drolwyn looked uncomfortable. Complete psychological profiles of every major council leader. Detailed analysis of our military capabilities. Economic models showing our dependencies and weaknesses. They even predicted how long it would take for our civilization to collapse without their support. He highlighted one particular file. This document is titled Council Species Evaluation Final Report. It's not flattering. The captain read from the file. After 50 years of observation, we conclude that galactic civilization has reached a state of technological and social stagnation. The council species show no capacity for meaningful advancement and actively resist innovation that threatens established power structures. The chamber erupted in angry voices. Ambassador Ziktar stood up, his forearms waving furiously. How dare they judge us? We built an empire that spans the galaxy. There's more, Captain Drolwyn said, quieting the crowd. They rated each species on various factors: military effectiveness, technological innovation, social development, leadership capability. He showed the ratings on the display. The numbers were devastating. Every council species scored poorly in multiple categories. The humans had found them all lacking. But the most disturbing file is this one, the captain continued. It's called Project Silent Departure, Timeline and Implementation. Dr. Velnova felt her tentacles curl in fear. They planned this from the beginning? Not from the beginning, but for at least 20 years. The file shows they decided to leave after concluding that the council was irredeemably corrupt and incapable of positive change. The evidence kept getting worse. Files showed that humans had intentionally made themselves indispensable while appearing harmless. They had studied every weakness in council society and positioned themselves to exploit those weaknesses if necessary. Sir, reported Chief Engineer Raltak, who had accompanied the expedition. We also found their manufacturing facilities. The technology inside is at least 500 years ahead of ours. Maybe more. He activated another display showing the interior of a human factory. This single facility could produce more advanced computers in one day than our entire industrial base makes in a year. And it's completely automated. They could have given us this technology, Admiral Cortell said bitterly. They could have advanced our civilization by centuries. According to their files, they tried, Captain Drolwyn replied. Multiple times. But every attempt to share advanced technology was either rejected by the council or corrupted by political interference. He showed a file titled Failed Technology Transfer Attempts. The list was long and detailed. Faster than light communication offered to improve. Council networks rejected as unnecessary. Expense. Advanced medical treatments that could cure genetic diseases. Rejected as unproven and dangerous. Clean energy systems that would make fuel costs irrelevant. Rejected as threat to established energy markets. We rejected all of this? Chancellor Mordak asked in disbelief. The council did, usually because the technology threatened someone's profits or power base. The humans concluded that we would rather stay primitive than risk change. Dr. Kivrin, who had first discovered the pattern of failures, stood up with a question. Did they leave any way to contact them? Captain Drolwyn's expression grew even more grim. We found communication equipment that could reach anywhere in the galaxy. But it's programmed to only receive messages, not send them. The humans can listen to us, but we can't reach them unless they choose to respond. So they're watching us fail, Admiral Cortell said angrily. It appears so. And according to their projections, total system collapse will occur within 6 more months unless we find alternative solutions. The captain showed the final file, a detailed timeline of galactic civilization's collapse. The predictions were terrifyingly accurate. Systems had failed exactly when the humans said they would. Food shortages had appeared on schedule. Transportation networks had collapsed according to the timeline. They calculated everything, Dr. Velnova whispered. They knew exactly what would happen when they left. There's one more thing, Captain Drolwyn said reluctantly. We found a message. It was left in the main computer on Earth, programmed to activate when someone accessed their files. Show us, Chancellor Mordak ordered. The holographic display changed to show a human woman. She appeared to be middle-aged with graying hair and calm eyes. When she spoke, her voice was measured and professional. If you are watching this message, it means our departure has caused significant problems for galactic civilization. This was not done out of malice, but out of necessity, the woman continued. We spent 50 years trying to help the Council species advance. We offered technology, knowledge, and solutions to your greatest challenges. But we learned that you prefer familiar problems to unfamiliar solutions. Her image paused, as if choosing words carefully. We realized that our presence was actually holding you back. As long as humans fixed your problems, you would never learn to fix them yourselves. Our departure is not punishment, it's education. Your civilizations must learn to stand on their own. You must develop your own technologies and solve your own challenges. Only then can you become true partners in galactic advancement. The message ended with coordinates. When you are ready to join us as equals rather than dependents, come to these coordinates. But understand that readiness means fundamental change in how your societies operate. We will not return to enable your stagnation. The chamber fell silent. The humans hadn't abandoned the galaxy out of anger or fear. They had left to force the Council species to grow up. Chancellor Mordak looked around at his fellow Council members. For the first time, he saw them as the humans must have seen them. Spoiled children playing with toys they didn't understand, relying on others to solve their problems. The coordinates, he said quietly. Send a message there immediately. What should we say? Asked Dr. Velnova. The Chancellor thought for a long moment. What could they say? That they were sorry? That they would change? That they needed help? All of those things were true. But after seeing the human files, he knew that words wouldn't be enough. The humans wanted proof of change, not promises. Tell them we understand, he said finally. Tell them we're trying to learn. The message was sent, but no response came. Somewhere in the darkness between stars, humanity was watching and waiting. They would return only when the galaxy proved it was ready for them. The question was, would galactic civilization survive long enough to learn the lessons humanity was trying to teach? 2 years after humanity's departure, Ambassador Sarah Chen appeared on every screen in Council space simultaneously. The transmission came without warning, interrupting regular broadcasts across thousands of worlds. Her image was clear and sharp, transmitted with technology that made Council communications look primitive. She sat in what appeared to be a simple office, but careful observers noticed details that were impossible by Council standards. The walls seemed to shimmer with embedded displays. The lighting had no visible source but perfectly illuminated everything. Even the chair she sat in defied easy explanation. It appeared to float slightly above the floor. People of the Galactic Council, she began, her voice calm and professional. I'm Ambassador Sarah Chen, speaking for the Human Republic. I bring greetings from humanity and important news about our shared future. On Nexus Prime, the emergency session of the Council had been called within minutes of the transmission beginning. Every remaining Council member crowded into the chamber, staring at the screen showing the human ambassador. 2 years ago, humanity made the difficult decision to withdraw from Council space, Sarah continued. This was not done in anger or spite. It was done because we realized that our presence was preventing necessary growth in galactic civilization. Chancellor Mordak gripped his chair arms tightly. Behind Sarah, he could see glimpses of advanced technology that made his heart race with possibility. During our 50 years among you, we offered repeatedly to share our knowledge and capabilities. Each time these offers were rejected or corrupted by political interests. We concluded that the Council was not ready for true advancement. Sarah's expression remained neutral. but her words cut deep. Your civilizations had become dependent on our solutions without understanding how those solutions worked. You used our technology like children playing with tools made by adults. On the Zephyrian homeworld, billions of beings watched the transmission with desperate hope. Their atmospheric processors were still failing and millions had already died. They needed the humans to return, but pride and fear warred with necessity. However, Sarah continued, we have been monitoring your progress since our departure. We are pleased to see that some species have shown remarkable growth under pressure. The display behind Sarah changed to show images from across the galaxy. Zephyrian engineers working together to rebuild their atmospheric systems. Catharian scientists studying human technology instead of just using it. Aquarian farmers developing new agricultural techniques. The Zephyrian people have learned to work together across political boundaries to solve critical problems. The Catharian military has begun training engineers instead of just warriors. The Aquarian Empire has started sharing resources instead of hoarding them. These changes represent exactly the kind of growth we hoped to see. Faced with real challenges, your species have begun to evolve beyond the limitations that held you back. On the research world of Kepler Prime, Dr. Jintar and his team had spent months studying abandoned human facilities. They had made breakthrough after breakthrough, slowly understanding technology that had seemed impossible before. The human ambassador's words gave him hope that their work was being noticed. But we have also observed species that chose a different path, Sarah said, her tone growing colder. Some have spent these 2 years blaming others for their problems. Some have tried to militarily force weaker species to provide solutions. Some have simply waited for rescue instead of working for salvation. The display showed different images now. Hegemony ships attacking neutral colonies to steal resources. Trade Federation officials hoarding supplies while outer worlds starved. Politicians giving speeches promising easy solutions that never came. To those species we offer only this warning. The galaxy is changing. Those who refuse to change with it will be left behind. Ambassador Ziktar of the Hegemony stood up in the council chamber, his 4 arms trembling with rage. Who are they to judge us? Who gave them the right to decide our future? But his words fell on deaf ears. The other council members were focused on Sarah's next revelation. Today, humanity makes a new offer to galactic civilization. But this offer comes with conditions that are non-negotiable. The display behind Sarah changed to show star charts. Hundreds of systems, many of them unknown to the council, appeared on the galactic map. We offer unrestricted access to these star systems. Each contains habitable worlds rich in resources. Some have multiple inhabitable planets. Others contain rare materials that your civilizations desperately need. Gasps filled the council chamber. The number of worlds being offered was staggering. It would double the size of council space and solve resource shortages that had caused wars for centuries. But, Sarah continued, these worlds come with conditions. First, no single species may claim more than 10% of the offered systems. Second, all settlements must be joint colonies with at least 3 different species working together. Third, any use of military force in the claimed systems will result in immediate expulsion. Dr. Velnova was making rapid calculations. If the humans' offer was genuine, it would fundamentally change galactic civilization. Species would have to cooperate instead of compete. They would have to share instead of conquer. Furthermore, Sarah said, we will provide technological assistance to any species that demonstrates genuine commitment to advancement. But this assistance will come in the form of education and training, not finished products. You must learn to build and maintain your own technology. She paused, letting the implications sink in. We will no longer solve your problems for you. We will teach you to solve them yourselves. The old Galactic Council is hereby dissolved, Sarah announced calmly. It has proven itself incapable of effective governance. Any species wishing to participate in the new galactic community must apply individually and demonstrate their commitment to cooperation and advancement. Chancellor, Mordek felt his world crumble around him. The council that had ruled for 2,000 years was being casually dismissed by a species most members still considered primitive. Applications will be judged based on concrete actions, not promises. We will evaluate how you treat other species, how you solve problems, and how you adapt to challenges. Species that pass this evaluation will be welcomed as true partners. Those that fail will be left to manage their own affairs. The transmission continued with practical details. Application procedures, evaluation criteria, timeline for decisions. But the most important information was simple. Humanity was offering a chance for genuine galactic civilization, but only to those willing to earn it. I want to be clear about one final point, Sarah said, her voice becoming warmer. Humanity does not seek to rule the galaxy. We seek to guide it toward its potential. We have seen what your species can accomplish when you work together and push yourselves to grow. The Zephyrians have already demonstrated this. In just 2 years, they have advanced their atmospheric technology by decades. The same species that relied on our systems for survival has now created better systems of their own. On Veltar, Chief Engineer Ralvin felt tears of pride. His team had worked day and night to understand human technology. They had failed countless times, but each failure taught them something new. Now their atmospheric processors were not only working, but were more efficient than the original human designs. We look forward to welcoming worthy species into true partnership, Sarah concluded. But remember, this is not a return to the old system where we solve your problems. This is the beginning of a new system where we solve problems together. The transmission ended, leaving the galaxy in stunned silence. Within hours, the effects were dramatic. Several species immediately announced their intention to apply for the new galactic community. Others declared their independence from the old council and began preparing their own applications. But some species, led by the hegemony of Keth, rejected the human offer entirely. "We will not bow to alien judgment," Ambassador Ziktar declared. "The hegemony will forge its own path." The galaxy began to split into 2 groups: progressive species that embraced the challenge of earning human partnership, and conservative species that clung to old ways and old grudges. 1 year later, the first new members were accepted into what became known as the Galactic Cooperative. The Zephyrian Republic was first, followed by the Reformed Aquarian Federation and the Catharian Science Coalition, a breakaway group from the old hegemony. These species found themselves part of something unprecedented. A galactic civilization based on cooperation instead of domination, shared knowledge instead of hoarded secrets, growth instead of stagnation. Humanity kept its promises. They provided education and guidance, but never solutions. They shared their knowledge freely, but required proof of understanding before advancing to more complex topics. They treated their new partners as equals while gently pushing them to become better than they had been. The old Galactic Council faded into history. Some of its former members eventually earned their way into the new cooperative. Others retreated into isolation, convinced that the galaxy had gone mad. But for those willing to grow, to change, and to work together, the future was brighter than anyone had ever imagined. Humanity had given them the greatest gift possible, the chance to become worthy of the stars they lived among.